The meeting. In a distant future, Earth was not the only home for humans. It was a time when the stars were within reach, and many planets had been discovered. Among these planets was Aurelia, a vibrant world filled with beautiful landscapes and advanced technology. The people of Aurelia were proud of their heritage, and the royal family was known for its wisdom and strength. At the center of this royal family was Princess Lyra, a young alien woman with emerald green skin and sparkling silver hair. Princess Lyra was kind and curious. She loved to explore the universe and learn about other cultures. When she turned 18, her parents decided it was time for her to represent their planet on a diplomatic mission to Earth. Lyra was excited yet nervous. She had heard stories about humans, their creativity, and their emotions. She longed to meet them. As Lyra arrived on Earth, she marveled at the beauty of the blue planet. The vibrant cities and green fields were unlike anything she had seen before. Her heart raced with excitement. The humans welcomed her warmly, but she felt a little out of place. They looked at her with curiosity, and she could sense their mixed feelings. Some admired her, while others viewed her as an outsider. On the first day of her visit, Lyra attended a grand reception in a large hall. The hall was filled with people dressed in bright clothes, chatting and laughing. Lyra stood by the window, gazing out at the bustling city. She felt a bit lonely among the crowd. Suddenly, a tall figure approached her. "Hey there, you look a bit lost," said a young man with tousled brown hair and a warm smile. His name was Jake. He was a mechanic, known for his friendly nature and love for adventure. Lyra turned to him, her eyes wide with surprise. "I am not lost, just observing," she replied, her voice soft and melodic. Jake chuckled. "Observing? You look like you need someone to show you around. Would you like to join me?" Lyra hesitated for a moment. She had been told to stay close to her guards, but something about Jake's kind eyes made her feel at ease. "All right, I would like that," she said with a smile. As they walked through the city, Jake shared stories about Earth. He talked about the mountains, the oceans, and the different cultures that thrived on the planet. Lyra listened intently, fascinated by every word. They visited a local market filled with colorful fruits and crafts. Lyra tried a strange-looking fruit called an apple and giggled when she discovered it was sweet and crunchy. "This is amazing. I never imagined Earth would be so lively," Lyra exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Jake smiled. "There's a lot more to see. Let's go to the park. It's beautiful this time of year." They arrived at a park filled with blooming flowers and tall trees. The air was fresh, and the sound of laughter surrounded them. Lyra felt a sense of freedom as they sat on a bench beneath a cherry blossom tree. The petals danced in the breeze, creating a magical atmosphere. "Tell me about your home," Jake asked, genuinely interested. Lyra hesitated, then opened up about Aurelia. "It is a peaceful place, full of nature and advanced technology. My family rules with kindness, but sometimes I feel trapped by my responsibilities," she confessed. Jake nodded, understanding her feelings. "I get that. Sometimes it's hard to balance what others expect from you and what you really want." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and as the sun began to set, the sky transformed into a canvas of orange and pink hues. Lyra felt a connection with Jake that she had never experienced before. He was different from anyone she had met. He saw her for who she was, not just a princess. "I wish I could stay here longer," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake smiled softly. "You could always come back. Earth will welcome you anytime." As night fell, the stars emerged in the sky, twinkling like diamonds. Lyra gazed up, feeling a sense of wonder. "Do you ever look at the stars and wonder what's out there?" she asked. Jake chuckled. "All the time. I dream of exploring the universe one day." In that moment, Lyra realized she had found a kindred spirit in Jake. She felt a warmth in her heart, something she had never felt before. But deep down, she knew their worlds were different, and their paths might never cross again. As they walked back to the reception, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something special. She hoped for more moments like this, but she also feared the challenges that lay ahead. Little did she know, this meeting would change her life forever. That night, Lyra lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling of her room in the hotel. Thoughts of Jake filled her mind. She felt a strange mix of happiness and sadness. How could she fall for a human? Would her family approve? What would happen when she returned to Aurelia? Despite the questions swirling in her head, one thing was clear. She had to see Jake again. There was something magical about him, and she wanted to explore it further. As she drifted off to sleep, Lyra dreamed of adventures, love, and the possibilities that lay ahead. This meeting was only the beginning, and it set the stage for a journey neither of them could have imagined. The stars seemed to shimmer brighter that night, as if promising that their story was just beginning. The consequences. As the sun rose over the horizon, its warm rays poured through Lyra's window, waking her from a night filled with dreams of adventure and love. She sat up in bed, her heart racing at the thought of her new friend, Jake. However, as she got ready for her day, the weight of her royal duties began to settle on her shoulders again. Lyra had come to Earth on a diplomatic mission, and her parents expected her to represent Aurelia with grace and strength. Today, she was scheduled to meet with Earth's leaders to discuss trade agreements. While she was excited to engage with humans, her heart ached at the thought of leaving Jake behind. In the grand hall of the government building, Lyra stood in front of a long table filled with important-looking people. She wore her royal attire, a flowing gown that shimmered like starlight. As she presented herself, she felt the pressure of expectations weighing heavily on her. She had practiced her speech countless times, but now that she was here, she felt nervous. "Welcome, Princess Lyra," one of the leaders said, a stern man with gray hair and a sharp gaze. "We appreciate your visit and look forward to strengthening our ties with Aurelia." Lyra nodded, forcing a smile. "Thank you for having me. I hope we can find ways to benefit both our worlds." As she spoke, she could feel the eyes of the room on her, scrutinizing her every word. As the meeting progressed, Lyra shared her ideas about trade and cooperation. However, her mind often wandered back to Jake. She imagined his smile, the way he laughed, and the spark she felt when they were together. It was a delightful distraction, but soon it turned into an overwhelming worry. How could she balance her heart's desires with her responsibilities? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the hall. The doors swung open, and a group of armed soldiers rushed in, causing chaos. Lyra's heart raced as she looked around, trying to understand what was happening. "Princess, stay back," one of the guards shouted as they surrounded her. The soldiers were shouting about a security breach. In the midst of the chaos, Lyra's mind raced back to Jake. Was he safe? Was he involved in this? The soldiers were searching for someone, and the tension in the room grew thicker. Lyra's instincts kicked in. She had to get out and find Jake. As the soldiers pushed the crowd back, Lyra quietly slipped away, determined to locate her friend. She dashed through the halls, her heart pounding in her chest. She finally made it to the entrance of the building, where she spotted Jake standing outside, looking bewildered and worried. Their eyes met, and Lyra felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Lyra," Jake exclaimed, rushing towards her. "I saw the soldiers come in. I was worried." "I'm fine," Lyra said, catching her breath. "I was afraid something had happened to you." Before they could embrace, the sound of sirens blared nearby, signaling that the situation was more serious than they realized. "We need to get somewhere safe," Jake said, glancing nervously around. Lyra nodded, and they quickly ducked into a nearby alleyway, hiding from the chaos. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We need to gather information first," Jake replied. "If there's a group causing trouble, we should find out who they are and what they want." Lyra agreed, but deep down, she felt the urgency of time slipping away. She could not allow anyone to jeopardize the connection she was beginning to forge with Jake and the humans of Earth. "Let's go back and find out what's happening," she urged. They stealthily made their way back to the building, blending in with the crowd of panicking people. As they approached the entrance, Lyra overheard snippets of conversation. "They want war," one leader said angrily. "They think we cannot be trusted." Lyra's heart sank. This was more serious than she had imagined. As she and Jake entered the hall, they found the atmosphere thick with tension. The leaders were arguing, and the soldiers were on high alert. "Princess Lyra, where have you been?" one of the guards demanded. "You cannot be here. It's not safe." "I need to help," she insisted, her voice steady despite her fear. "We need to find out who is behind this attack." Jake stood by her side, supporting her with a look of determination. Together, they would uncover the truth. But little did they know, their quest for answers would lead them down a dangerous path. As they moved through the crowd, they spotted a cloaked figure lurking near the back of the hall. Lyra's instincts kicked in. "There, that person seems suspicious," she whispered to Jake. Without hesitation, they made their way toward the figure, trying to blend in with the throng of frightened people. The cloaked individual glanced around nervously, and Lyra could feel a strange energy emanating from them. Whoever this person was, they held a key to understanding the chaos unfolding around them. The cloaked figure turned to leave, and Lyra and Jake exchanged a quick glance, silently agreeing to follow. Their hearts raced as they pursued the mysterious person, unaware that their choices would shape the fate of both their worlds. In the midst of turmoil and uncertainty, Lyra knew one thing for sure. She was not just a princess. She was now a warrior for peace, and with Jake by her side, they would confront whatever darkness lay ahead, determined to protect the bond they had just begun to forge. The search for answers. Lyra and Jake followed the cloaked figure through the crowded halls, their hearts pounding with excitement and anxiety. The atmosphere was charged with tension, and the murmurs of confusion echoed around them. People were scared, and Lyra felt a sense of urgency to uncover the truth. As they navigated through the chaos, the cloaked figure slipped into a dark corridor, and Lyra hurried after them, pulling Jake along. "We need to be careful," she whispered, her eyes scanning the shadows for any signs of danger. The corridor led to a dimly lit room, filled with crates and equipment. It smelled musty, and the sound of voices could be heard nearby. Lyra and Jake pressed against the wall, listening intently. "I told you to make sure she doesn't find out," a deep voice growled, filled with frustration. "If the princess learns about our plan, everything will fall apart." Lyra exchanged a worried glance with Jake. They were onto something significant. "We have to find out who that is," Jake urged, his voice barely above a whisper. As they peered around the corner, Lyra's heart sank. The cloaked figure stood with a group of men dressed in dark uniforms, each one looking serious and determined. They were clearly plotting something sinister. One of the men, a tall figure with a scar running down his cheek, spoke again. "We cannot let the peace talks succeed. If the humans and Aurelians unite, we will lose our power." Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. "They want to sabotage the peace," she gasped. "Then we need to stop them," Jake replied, gripping Lyra's hand tightly. "But we can't do it alone. We need evidence to show the leaders." As they contemplated their next move, Lyra's heart raced. She couldn't allow this group to destroy the fragile alliance between Earth and Aurelia. They had to act quickly. "Let's find something we can use as proof," she suggested. They crept silently into the room, careful not to make a sound. The men were too focused on their conversation to notice the intruders. Lyra spotted a stack of documents on a table nearby, and her eyes widened in realization. If they could get their hands on those papers, they might uncover the group's plans. Jake nodded, understanding her thoughts. "I'll distract them," he whispered, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "You grab the documents." Lyra's heart raced at the thought of Jake putting himself in danger. "Be careful," she urged, but he simply smiled. With a deep breath, Jake stepped into the room, clearing his throat loudly. "Hey, what's going on here?" he called, trying to sound confident. The men turned sharply, eyes narrowing as they focused on Jake. "Who are you?" the scared man demanded, stepping forward. "You shouldn't be here." While Jake engaged them in conversation, Lyra quickly moved to the table, her hands trembling as she grabbed the stack of documents. She could feel the weight of their importance pressing down on her. "Just a curious human," Jake said, trying to keep their attention away from Lyra. "I wanted to know why you guys look so serious." "Mind your own business," another man shouted, taking a threatening step toward Jake. Lyra's heart raced as she quickly scanned the papers. They were filled with plans to disrupt the peace talks and manipulate the humans' fears against the Aurelians. "I have to show this to the leaders," she thought, her resolve strengthening. Suddenly, one of the men caught sight of Lyra, his eyes widening in alarm. "Get her," he shouted, lunging toward her. Lyra's instincts kicked in, and she turned to run, clutching the documents tightly to her chest. "Jake, we need to go," she yelled as she dashed out of the room. Jake followed closely behind, and together they raced down the corridor, the sound of angry shouts echoing behind them. Adrenaline surged through Lyra as they navigated through the building, weaving through frightened people who were still trying to figure out what was happening. "Where do we go?" Jake panted, glancing over his shoulder. "Outside. We need to warn the leaders," Lyra replied, her determination pushing her forward. They burst through the main doors and into the fresh air, but they knew they were not safe yet. As they ran toward the entrance to the conference room, Lyra's heart raced. They had to find a way to share what they discovered without getting caught by the conspirators. Just as they reached the entrance, a guard stepped in front of them, a stern expression on his face. "Stop right there," he ordered. "We have important information." Lyra exclaimed, her voice rising in urgency. "There's a group trying to sabotage the peace talks." The guard hesitated, clearly torn. "You need to come with me," he said, stepping aside. "But you better have something to back up your claims." Lyra nodded, breathing heavily as she handed the documents to the guard. "These are their plans. You have to show them to the leaders." The guard's eyes widened as he read through the papers. "I'll take this to the council," he said quickly, rushing inside. Lyra and Jake stood outside, heartbeats still racing. "Did we do enough?" Jake asked, worry evident in his eyes. "We will find out soon," Lyra replied, trying to steady her breathing. "But we can't let them get away with this. We have to stay close to the leaders." Just then, an alarm blared through the building, and Lyra's stomach dropped. "They're onto us," she gasped. Hidden agendas. Lyra and Jake trailed the cloaked figure through the winding alleyways of the city. The once bustling streets now felt eerily quiet, as if the tension from the earlier disturbance had settled into the very air around them. Lyra's heart raced, her mind torn between the political duties that weighed on her and the growing connection she felt with Jake. "Do you think they know we're following them?" Jake whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of their footsteps. "I don't know," Lyra replied, keeping her eyes locked on the figure ahead. "But whoever they are, they seem to be at the center of all this chaos." They turned a corner, the figure just ahead, moving swiftly through the shadows. Lyra's pulse quickened. She wasn't sure what they were walking into, but she knew they couldn't turn back now. There were too many questions unanswered, too many threats looming over both their worlds. Suddenly, the cloaked figure ducked into a narrow building, its door barely visible against the darkened walls. Lyra hesitated for a moment, glancing at Jake. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, concern flashing in his eyes. "We don't have a choice," she replied. "If there's a group trying to destroy the peace between our worlds, we have to stop them." They crept up to the door, pushing it open just enough to slip inside. The room was dimly lit, with the scent of old books and burning incense hanging in the air. Shelves lined the walls, filled with strange artifacts and scrolls Lyra didn't recognize. In the center of the room stood the cloaked figure, speaking in hushed tones to another person. A tall, "First, we need proof," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "We can't just go to the council with suspicions. We need to expose the people behind this." Jake looked at her, his eyes filled with determination. "Then let's find that proof, together." As they stood there, hidden in the shadows of the city, Lyra realized just how deep her bond with Jake had become. They were no longer just two individuals caught in a web of politics and intrigue. They were partners, bound by something stronger than fear or duty. And no matter what happened next, they would face it together. The gathering storm. Lyra and Jake had barely caught their breath when they stepped out of the alcove. The streets were still quiet, but the weight of their discovery hung heavy in the air. Lyra knew they had to act quickly. Time was not on their side. "Where do we start?" Jake asked, glancing around as if expecting enemies to jump out from the shadows. "We need to find my closest advisor, Eldrin," Lyra said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "He'll know what to do and how to gather the right people to help us." They moved swiftly through the winding streets, keeping to the shadows. Lyra could feel the tension building, the fear of betrayal lurking just below the surface. What if Eldrin didn't believe her? What if he thought she was just another lovesick princess, blinded by her feelings for a human? As they approached the grand palace, Lyra's stomach twisted in knots. The majestic structure stood tall and imposing against the darkening sky, its spires piercing the clouds. She had spent her whole life within those walls, learning the intricacies of leadership and diplomacy, yet she now felt like an outsider. "Are you sure we should go in through the front?" Jake asked, looking uneasy. "We have to," Lyra replied. "Eldrin is likely in the council chamber discussing the peace treaty. It's the best place to find him." They slipped through the grand entrance, moving quietly past guards who eyed them with suspicion. Lyra felt her heart race as they approached the council chamber. This was it. They had to convince Eldrin that the threat was real. Inside the chamber, a long table was surrounded by the leading members of the council, their expressions serious as they debated the terms of the treaty. Lyra took a deep breath and pushed the heavy door open. "Lyra!" Eldrin exclaimed, rising to his feet. His face was lined with worry as he took in her disheveled appearance. "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be out alone." "I need your help, Eldrin," Lyra said, urgency lacing her voice. "There's a plot against humanity. A group is planning an attack, and we need to stop them before it's too late." The council members turned to her, their expressions shifting from concern to disbelief. "An attack?" One of the members scoffed. "That's absurd. We are here to negotiate peace, not prepare for war." "Please, listen to her," Jake interjected, stepping forward. "We overheard them planning it. They see your desire for peace as a weakness." A murmur ran through the room, and Eldrin's eyes narrowed as he considered their words. "You heard this. From whom?" Lyra stepped forward, her heart pounding. "We followed a cloaked figure. They were speaking with someone who spoke against the treaty and expressed their intentions to attack Earth." "What proof do you have?" Another council member challenged. "Proof?" Lyra felt a surge of frustration. "We don't have time for proof. We need to act now." Eldrin raised a hand to silence the room. "Lyra, if what you say is true, we cannot act rashly. We need to gather more information first." "More information?" Lyra couldn't hide her anger. "People will die while we sit here debating." Eldrin stepped closer, his expression serious. "Calm down. If this plot is as dangerous as you say, we must devise a plan to uncover the truth. We can't risk a premature attack that could lead to more conflict." Lyra's heart sank. She knew he was right, but the urgency of the situation weighed heavily on her. "We don't have much time. They're gathering their forces as we speak." "We need to find that cloaked figure again," Jake suggested, his voice steady. "They might lead us to the others involved." Eldrin nodded slowly. That's a good idea. But we must proceed with caution. If they are indeed planning an attack, they will be on high alert. Lyra felt a mix of relief and frustration. At least they were finally taking her seriously, but she couldn't shake the feeling that time was slipping away. "I'll do whatever it takes to stop them," she declared. "I'm not going to let my feelings for Jake blind me to the danger we face." The search for truth. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the streets of the capital. Lyra felt a sense of urgency as they gathered their small team of trusted guards outside the palace. They had chosen to bring only a few, ensuring they could move swiftly and avoid attracting too much attention. Lyra, Jake, and Eldrin stood at the front, while the guards fanned out behind them. Each member was loyal and well-trained, ready to follow Lyra's lead. With a nod, she signaled for them to begin their search. "Let's start at the marketplace," Jake suggested. "It's a busy place, and we might find someone who saw the cloaked figure." "Good idea," Lyra agreed. "Stay alert and keep your eyes open for anyone who seems out of place." As they moved through the bustling streets, Lyra couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and dread. The marketplace was filled with colorful stalls, vibrant fabrics, and the delicious scents of food. Yet, beneath the surface, she could sense the tension in the air. Everyone seemed to be on edge, aware of the threat looming over them. They reached the heart of the marketplace, where merchants called out to customers and children laughed. Lyra scanned the crowd, hoping to spot anything unusual. Suddenly, a commotion erupted near a stall selling fruits. Lyra's heart raced as she pushed her way through the crowd. "What's happening?" she asked a nearby vendor. "A fight," the vendor replied, his eyes wide with shock. "Somebody was accused of stealing, and now there's chaos." Lyra moved closer, her instincts kicking in. She needed to see what was happening. As she squeezed through the throng, she caught a glimpse of a cloaked figure darting away from the stall. "Look," she shouted, pointing. "That's them." Without thinking, Lyra sprinted after the figure, her heart pounding in her chest. Jake and the guards followed closely behind, weaving through the crowd. The cloaked figure was fast, but Lyra was determined not to lose them. "Stop!" Lyra yelled, but the figure only ran faster, heading toward a narrow alleyway. "Lyra, wait," Jake called out, but she couldn't slow down. This was their chance. The figure dashed into the alley, and Lyra followed, the sounds of the marketplace fading behind her. The alley was dark and narrow, with shadows stretching across the cobblestones. She could hear footsteps echoing behind her as Jake and the guards caught up. "Where did they go?" one of the guards panted, scanning the area. Lyra took a moment to catch her breath, trying to listen for any sounds. "They must be close. We can't let them escape." Suddenly, she spotted movement ahead. The cloaked figure had stopped and turned, revealing a glint of something metallic in their hand. Lyra's heart raced as she realized it was a weapon. "Stay back," Lyra shouted, raising her hands in a show of peace. "We just want to talk." The figure hesitated, their posture tense. "Talk," they replied, their voice low and guarded. "You think I trust you?" "We know about the plot against Earth," Lyra said, hoping to gain their trust. "We want to stop it. We can help each other." The figure chuckled darkly. "Help each other? You think I would trust a princess and her human lover?" Jake stepped forward, his expression firm. "We're not here to hurt you. We're trying to stop the real threat, the one you're a part of." At the mention of the threat, the figure's eyes narrowed. "What do you know?" "Enough to know that if we don't work together, everyone will suffer," Lyra insisted, keeping her voice steady. "We can't let hatred and betrayal dictate our future." The figure shifted slightly, the tension in the air palpable. "And why should I trust you?" "Because we share a common enemy," Jake said, stepping into the light. "If you join us, we can take them down together." The cloaked figure hesitated, weighing their options. Lyra held her breath, praying they would see reason. Finally, The figure lowered their weapons slightly. "Fine, but you'll need to prove you're serious. Follow me." With that, the figure turned and began to walk deeper into the alley. Lyra exchanged a glance with Jake and the guards, feeling a mix of hope and apprehension. They had taken a risk, but it seemed to be paying off. As they followed the figure, they reached a hidden door at the back of the alley. The cloaked figure knocked in a specific pattern, and the door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with maps and strange devices. "This is my base," the figure said, pulling back their hood to reveal a sharp-featured alien with piercing green eyes. "I'm Zarek. I used to be part of the council before I discovered their true intentions." "True intentions?" Lyra asked, intrigued. "What do you mean?" Zarek gestured to the maps covering the walls. "They want to create chaos, to pit humans and aliens against each other. They believe war will solidify their power." Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. "But why? What do they gain from this?" Zarek looked at her with a mix of determination and sadness. "Fear and control. They believe that by creating conflict, they can unite their own people against a common enemy. Bus." Lyra exchanged glances with Jake and the guards, realizing the depth of the situation. They were fighting against more than just a single attack. They were facing a calculated plan to sow discord between their worlds. "What do we need to do?" Lyra asked, her resolve strengthening. "We need to gather evidence and expose their plan," Zarek replied. "Only then can we rally others to our side before it's too late." With newfound determination, Lyra nodded. "Then let's do it. We need to put an end to this before it escalates any further." Together, they began to strategize, knowing that the storm was coming, and they had to be ready. In that moment, Lyra felt a sense of unity forming between them, a bond forged by a shared purpose. They were no longer just an alien princess and a human boy. They were allies fighting for a future free from destruction. Lyra nodded. "Zarek, can you provide us with the details of their defenses? If we know their weaknesses, we can strike where it hurts." Zarek nodded, and the group began discussing strategies. They formed smaller teams to gather information and scout out council territories. Lyra felt a sense of unity as they worked together, exchanging ideas and crafting their plan. As dusk settled over the ruins, the atmosphere shifted from tension to camaraderie. Laughter and discussions filled the air, and Lyra felt a flicker of hope. They had taken the first step toward changing the fate of their worlds. But in the back of her mind, a nagging thought lingered. What if the council caught wind of their plans? They were playing a dangerous game, and the stakes were higher than ever. That night, as Lyra lay in her makeshift bed beneath the stars, she pondered the choices ahead. The bond between her and Jake had grown stronger through their shared purpose. He was her rock, always there to support her in the face of uncertainty. "Are you ready for this?" Jake asked quietly, his voice breaking the silence. Lyra turned to him, her heart swelling with determination. "I have to be. We can't let fear control us. We need to fight for our future." Jake smiled, a glimmer of admiration in his eyes. "Then we'll face it together. No matter what happens, I'll be by your side." Lyra reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. She knew the road ahead would be perilous, but with allies by their side and the strength of their bond, they would face whatever challenges came their way. As sleep began to claim her, Lyra felt a renewed sense of purpose. The storm was coming, but she was ready to stand against it. They would fight for peace, for love, and for a future where both humans and aliens could coexist without fear. The next day would bring new challenges, but Lyra was prepared to face them head-on. They would take the fight to the council, and together, they would change the course of their destinies forever. The final confrontation. The day of reckoning had arrived. Lyra, Jake, Zarek, and their allies gathered at the edge of the council's stronghold. The air was thick with anticipation, and the stakes felt higher than ever. They had worked tirelessly to gather intelligence and prepare for this moment, and now They stood on the brink of a battle that could alter the fate of their worlds. Lyra looked at her allies, each face reflecting a mix of determination and apprehension. Remember why we're here. This isn't just about us. It's about everyone who suffered under the Council's rule. We fight for our families, our friends, and our future. Jake stood beside her, his eyes filled with unwavering support. Together, we are stronger. Let's show them that we won't be intimidated any longer. Zarek nodded, gripping his weapon tightly. We'll strike fast and hit hard. Surprise is our greatest ally. Once we breach the defenses, we'll create a path for everyone to follow. As they began their approach, Lyra could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The Council's stronghold loomed ahead, a fortress of stone and steel, fortified and ready for battle. But they had a plan, and they were prepared to execute it flawlessly. The first wave of their attack began with a flurry of blaster fire from Zarek's team, aimed at the guards stationed at the entrance. The element of surprise worked in their favor, and chaos erupted as the guards scrambled to respond. Lyra took a deep breath, steeling herself as she and Jake moved forward. They darted through the narrow openings in the defenses, weaving between columns and walls, their hearts racing with each step. The sounds of battle echoed around them, but they focused on their goal, reaching the council chambers. Over here, Jake shouted, pointing to a side corridor that led deeper into the stronghold. They dashed inside, adrenaline pushing them onward. As they moved further in, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to her. The council would not take this uprising lightly. They would fight back with everything they had. After several tense moments of navigating through the corridors, they finally arrived at the grand doors of the council chamber. Lyra's heart raced as she pushed the door open, revealing a large room filled with council members. They stood, shocked and unprepared for the attack. "Stop right there," one of the council leaders yelled, his face twisted in disbelief. "You're making a grave mistake." Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady and resolute. "The only mistake was allowing you to think you could control our fates. We're here to end your tyranny." A sense of urgency filled the room as Lyra's allies poured in behind her, forming a line of defense. Zarek and Callan stood ready, their weapons raised. The council members exchanged nervous glances, realizing the gravity of the situation. The council leader sneered, attempting to regain control. "You think you can take us down? You're nothing but a bunch of misguided fools." "Fools who have had enough," Jake countered, stepping forward beside Lyra. "We won't let you hurt anyone else. Your reign of fear is over." As tensions reached a boiling point, one of the council members pulled a hidden weapon, aiming it at Lyra. But before he could fire, Zarek reacted swiftly, taking the shot. The council member fell, and the room erupted into chaos. Blaster fire filled the chamber, and the council members scrambled for cover. Lyra felt the heat of the battle surge around her, but she remained focused. With Jake at her side, they pushed forward, determined to confront the leaders of the council. The chaos was overwhelming, but Lyra could see the council leader preparing to make a last stand. "You're outnumbered. You can't win," he shouted, his voice laced with desperation. Lyra squared her shoulders, her resolve unshaken. "This isn't about winning or losing. This is about reclaiming our freedom. We're not afraid of you anymore." With that, the final confrontation began. Lyra and her allies fought fiercely, each blow striking with purpose. They moved with a synchronized grace, a well-oiled machine fueled by a shared dream of liberation. The council leader, realizing his defeat was imminent, attempted to escape. But Lyra was quicker. She intercepted him, her determination shining through. "You won't escape this time." He looked at her with fear in his eyes. "You're making a mistake. I can still make deals." "No more deals," Lyra declared, her voice firm. "Your time is up." With one decisive move, she disarmed him, and he fell to his knees, defeated. The room fell silent as the remaining council members realized the tide had turned. One by one, they surrendered, understanding that their reign of fear was over. As the dust settled, Lyra looked around the chamber, her heart swelling with triumph. They had done it. Together, they had fought back against oppression and won. Jake stepped beside her, a proud smile on his face. "We did it, Lyra. We actually did it." Lyra nodded, her eyes shining with tears of relief. "This is just the beginning. We'll rebuild, and we'll ensure that no one suffers like we did." As they emerged from the stronghold, a sense of hope filled the air. The people of both worlds would come together to create a brighter future. Lyra knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but with allies by her side and a shared vision for peace, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were no longer just an alien princess and a human. They were champions of their worlds, united in their quest for justice and freedom. Together, they would write a new chapter, one filled with hope, love, and a promise of a better tomorrow.